Chapter 13. What's up, Doc? You can visit temples anywhere in the world, but it helps if you shut up long enough to hear the echoes. What is Wat? Let's begin with that question. It sounds simple, but like most things in life, a simple question often unfolds into something much deeper and layered, like an ogre. Got that, donkey? Throughout the southeastern Asian continent, the term Wat can refer to either a Buddhist temple or a monastery. The difference being that a monastery is where monks live, meditate, chant, and study, whereas a temple does not have living quarters. The term is used widely throughout Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, and Sri Lanka, and sometimes loosely in the West. Wat indicates a Buddhist sacred site, a building or multiple buildings. Today, the term Wat is also used for ancient temple ruins. The most widespread usage of the term Wat, familiar to Western cultures, is Angkor Wat, the sprawling 12th century temple complex in Cambodia, whose name roughly translates to Temple City. Fun fact, it's located just outside Siem Reap, a name that, with no small amount of historical awkwardness, means Siam defeated. Siam being the former name of Thailand, and Thailand being the tourist base camp from which the most people visit Cambodia. So, yes, history has a long memory and a sharp tongue. Every Wat is beautiful in its own way. The intricacy and details of the site, each with its own architectural variations, seem endless. Though there are variations from Wat to Wat, there is always an adherence to the central myths, themes, and legends which comprise the stories of Buddhism, and often Hinduism as well. The word itself, Wat, is derived from Sanskrit, meaning enclosure, but in Thai it's evolved to signify far more: a place of refuge, of learning, of transformation. In the strictest sense, it translates to something like City of Temples. And if that doesn't set your spiritual expectations sky high, nothing will. I found myself hopping from one Wat to another like a spiritual bar crawl. Thankfully, minus hangovers. Each Wat is unique, a distinct fingerprint of cultural, spiritual, and artistic expression. Some are minimalist and serene, nestled in back alleys or up in the hills like secrets whispered from history. Others are maximalist, psychedelic visions of intense color, gold leaf, mirror tiles, and serpentine staircases guarded by mythical creatures that look like they were designed during a multi night ayahuasca jag. And yet, for all their differences, there's a shared vocabulary that threads them together. The same core symbolism appears again and again: lotus flowers in bloom, fierce guardian deities staring down evil spirits, Naga serpents slithering along balustrades, and Buddhas. So many Buddhas. Standing, sitting, reclining, meditating, teaching, smiling, frowning, and occasionally smirking like they know things you don't. Psst, they do. The stories told in those temples through murals, carvings, mosaics, woven textiles, written history, and statuary often are drawn not just from Buddhism, but Hinduism, ancient Thai folklore, and Chinese cosmology. Wat Arun, for instance, perched dramatically on the banks of the Phraya River in Bangkok, is a dazzling mix of Buddhist reverence and cosmic multiculturalism, looking less like a temple and more like a porcelain spaceship built by enlightened aliens. Temples in Thailand don't just tell you stories, they immerse you in them. They surround you with smells of incense, jasmine, and bergamot, the hypnotic thrum of chanting, the shimmer of heat rising from tiles and flagstones, the bark of a stray dog who's claimed the altar as his personal space. It's all part of the experience. Sacred, chaotic, layered, and alive. Temple etiquette. Do not be that tourist. There are rules when visiting Watts, and before you roll your eyes, let me clarify. This isn't about blind conformity. It's about respect. Respect for the space, the monks who live and practice there, the teachings of the Buddha, and, not least, the thousands of years of tradition that shaped those sacred grounds. This is not hard, folks. You don't have to be a Buddhist to behave decently. Fortunately, following those guidelines is not in any way like trying to master the mind blowing details of, say, quantum mechanics. Nearly every Watt makes it incredibly easy for visitors to comply as well. This is not a trick quiz from the culture police. The monks want you to visit, learn, and take it all in. They're not setting traps to catch you in a tank top. Here are the basics. Shoulders and knees must be covered at all times. Hats and sunglasses removed once inside the buildings. Shoes come off before stepping into any sacred structure, especially the ubosat and or wihan. Those are the main assembly halls, the heart of the Wat, where the most revered Buddha images are housed. Think of the wihan as a spiritual living room, but for the entire cosmos. So maybe don't stroll in there like you were arriving at a beachside barbecue. The ubosat is even more holy. It's the ordination hall and often off limits. Turn the volume off on your phone. You don't have to turn it off or put it into airplane mode. Just silence the thing. No one wants to sit in contemplation, gazing up at a large golden Buddha while listening to TikTok notifications and pings from text messages announcing your dinner plans. And speaking of sound, try to keep your voice low. You're not in a mall, you are in a living spiritual site. Now, for the behavioral part. No touching the Buddha statues. Not for luck, not for your social media feeds, not even if it just feels right. Buddha is not calling on you to caress him. Those images and statues are sacred, not set pieces. Photographing monks without their permission is a no go. I know they look amazing in their beautiful robes, but they're not extras in your travel documentary. Have some respect. Ask first. Always. I mean, come on. That's just common sense. And you know what? They'll almost always say yes. Pointing is considered rude. If you want to bring attention to a particular point of interest to your traveling companions, do so with discretion. The soles of your feet are considered unclean, and it is offensive to aim the bottoms of your feet at any Buddha, monks, or other people. And it should go without saying, don't light up a cigarette, cigar, pipe, joint, your vape pen, or a joint anywhere on the Watt grounds. I don't care if your vape pen smells like cinnamon and happy dreams. It's still disrespectful. It was during my first swing through Chiang Mai, before heading up into the mountains to the Ai Monastery, and I had parked myself at Gravity Cafe and Bistro, a great place on the corner of Rachamanka and Samlarn roads, where sweat and sanity all seemed to slide sideways by mid afternoon. I'd been pounding the pavement, doing recon around Chiang Mai's old city, trying to map its charm and contradictions, and dripping what I came to call a full bodied Thai sweat. That's not a figure of speech. It's a real condition, a kind of 360-degree sweat halo that seeps from every pore, no matter how many electrolytes you try to drink to fight it. It's as if your sweat is sweating. The only cure is sunset, aircon, or surrender. The plus side? Your skin looks amazing. As I sat there working through a sandwich and an iced lager, grateful to have found AC and a moment of stillness, I reflected on the temple I'd just left. Wat Phra Singh, Wurmaharaman. Try saying that 3 times fast without sounding like you're summoning a basilisk. But the moment wasn't entirely serene. What I had just witnessed inside the temple grounds was the kind of bizarre tourist behavior that makes you want to fake your passport nationality if you're from the same land as the following character. There she was, a woman whose accent betrayed some origin in Oceania, Australia, maybe New Zealand. Hard to tell. Her voice, though, was unmistakable. Loud, drawn out, the verbal equivalent of a highlighter pen with the end of sentences always on the rise. And she was angry, full on temple rage. Her problem? She'd been denied entrance to the Wihan, the main hall that houses the principal Buddha statue, by a monk, no less. A monk! Which, let's be honest, is probably the last person on earth you want to yell at if you care even remotely about your karmic scorecard. Her outfit was, well, not temple ready. She was decked out in a zebra patterned miniskirt that screamed Girls' Night in Ibiza, glittery high heels, and a gold sequined tube top that looked like it had beamed in from 1968 and hadn't been kept in climate controlled storage. The poor garment was clinging for dear life, waging a slow but inevitable war with gravity, and gravity, as always, was winning. I assumed she couldn't read, because at the entrance to the grounds and at every possible sightline, in multiple languages, including English, and at the entrance to most buildings, she had, I'll assume, missed every one of the signs posted that inappropriate attire is not acceptable and that visitors would be denied access if not covered. It's not like the dress code requires an evening jacket or a ball gown with pearls, or a head to toe niqab and abaya. She stomped, hands on hips, and launched into a tirade about how she had paid her entrance fee, and therefore she had every right to go in and look at the big gold Buddha, mate. Monk be damned. I watched the monk stand his ground, hands clasped in front of him, with the kind of serene patience I wish I could possess. His kindly and dignified silence, in response to the tirade being unleashed upon him, was quiet, unshakable, and completely ineffective against her cultural entitlement tsunami. When her first parry didn't sway the monk, she attempted to argue for women's rights, and that she was her own person with rights, and she had yet more rights. The beauty of the stoic monk in the face of such nonsense was epic. He never flinched as her gesticulating arms and hands, used to pronounce effect to emphasize her points, were like those tall blow up dolls that wave people into businesses. He never acted condescending or rude, not even a sneer on his lips showed. He was a personification of compassion and concern, most likely for her mental well being. And yet, she kept going. Blah, blah, blah. As if self expression via a bouncing sequin tube top was somehow a revolutionary act in the context of a 700-year-old religious sanctuary. Her campaign to enter failing at every step, even as he gently gestured to a small building back towards the entrance of the grounds where she could borrow a shawl to cover her shoulders and a sari like wrap to cover her knees. The temple could not have made compliance easier, and yet, as the idiom goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it put on a free wrap. Through it all, her man, bicep boy, husband, boyfriend, or personal trainer, stood by silently, arms crossed over his gym built chest, nodded in loyal agreement. He sported a tragically thin and patchy porn stash and a thick gold chain that looked like it had been picked up at a dollar discount store. His presence seemed to say, "Yeah, baby, you tell that monk. He'll get it at some point and then let you in." Sometimes a sigh just sneaks out. Mine did. The absurdity of it all was both maddening and oddly mesmerizing, like being unable to tear your gaze away from a body strewn crash site. Finally, she'd had enough. When she realized she was not getting her way, she grabbed her fellow by the arm and stormed off towards the entrance. The monk was following them with his eyes, a sad look on his face. He was young, a lad in his early 20s, if I had to guess. I walked over, greeting him with a Y, a bow with hands pressed together, and apologized for the ways of the world and the rudeness of some of the humans who inhabit it. He looked at me with a look that I did not understand. It was one of sadness and frustration. He and I talked about what had just happened when he said something that surprised me. Could you see the suffering she lives with? I was thinking more about the suffering her boy toy lived with, but the compassion that young monk showed for a person who had been berating him emphasized a very important lesson that everyone is in pain to some degree, and lashing out was merely a symptom. Some people carry that pain with silence and grace. Others wear it like a zebra print miniskirt and shout it into the world. But the pain's always there, bubbling just beneath the surface. I was dumbstruck and filled with admiration for that young man, who had just taken a verbal beating the likes of which I'd rarely witnessed in public. Another thing which that visit to a Wat taught me was on your first visit to a temple, if you are unfamiliar with the cosmology, the symbology, architecture, and iconography, it's a prudent idea to join a paid tour group. The docent led tours are inexpensive and created specifically for foreigners who want to actually learn something. As you walk past tour groups, it is common to hear the docents speaking languages from all over the world. The downside is the tours can be large groups. That means a timed and regimented walkthrough that doesn't leave space for musing and cruising. But you'll learn a lot about not only the Wat you're visiting, but the commonalities of Wats you might visit in the future. There is a lot going on in the symmetry of the grounds, the architectural design flourishes, and what each building is used for, making your next visit more informed, and to my mind, more informed means more enjoyable. Yeah, I'm woke. Sue me. Wat architecture follows a remarkably consistent set of principles across almost all temples in Thailand. With few exceptions, each Wat is composed of two main sections, the Futatha Wat and the Sangha Wat. This division isn't just practical, it reflects the spiritual and communal functions of the monastery. The Futatha Wat arena is dedicated to the Buddhist and is typically open to the public. It's where lay people come to make merit, light incense, and occasionally stare in wonder at a larger than life Buddha radiating serenity. While the architectural styles may vary from region to region, the layout and purpose of the buildings within the Futatha Wat are strikingly consistent. You'll almost always find Viharn, the main worship hall, an Ubosat, or Bot, the ordination hall, often considered the most sacred space, a bell tower, and one or more chetties. In contrast, the Sangha the section of the temple where the monks live, eat, and sleep, is almost always closed to the general public. It includes living quarters, meditation spaces, study halls, libraries, and sometimes small gardens or artfully secluded areas for walking meditation. It's the engine room of the monastery, quieter, more utilitarian, and distinctly less photogenic, unless you're into laundry lines and alms bowls. Together, the Futatha Wat and Sangha Wat form the full spiritual and practical life of the Wat, a balance of devotion and discipline, public ritual and private practice. It's a layout that has endured for centuries. The Chedi, also known as stupas, are large bell shaped domes which are often covered in gold leaf, gleaming in the sun like oversized trophies to devotion. At their core lies a relic chamber, typically housing remains or artifacts associated with the Buddha or revered monks. There is always a Wihan, the large, ornately decorated hall that contains large Buddha statues and artworks often depicting the life of the Buddha. The Wihan is an assembly hall where monks and lay Buddhists and the curious visitor congregate to pay respects to the Buddha, hold ceremonies, and more. Some, though not all, Wats include an ubosat, the ordination hall and the most sacred space in the monastery. The ubosat is where a senior monk, trained in the detailed rituals of ordination, induct novices into monastic life. Often, this hall is off limits to the public. only temple monks and the Upajjhaya preceptor are permitted entry, underscoring its spiritual weight. There is often, but not always, a ho rakeng, a bell tower used for waking the monks and to call them to ceremonies. If no bell tower is on the grounds, a large gong is used for the same purpose. Often there is a structure called a sala. These are in the form of a pavilion offering shade and a place to rest or meditate. The structures in Wats across Thailand are like architectural cousins. They share a lot of similarities, as if all the temples were made by the same design team. Take the roofs, for example. They cascade upward in neat tiers, like a layered cake, topped off with decorative barge boards that run along the peak center line of the roof. These barge boards are often carved into intricate designs, attached to the projecting apex of the pitched roof right in front of the gable, and those carvings usually feature Naga, the snake deity that seems to show up everywhere, both in Buddhist and Hindu traditions. Seriously, if Naga had a LinkedIn profile, he'd be the most connected deity in the world. The Naga is more than just a snazzy piece of decor, though. Ancient mythology tells a story that after the Buddha attained enlightenment while meditating under the Bodhi tree, a torrential downpour commenced. A giant snake like creature named Musalinda appeared from the underworld and used its hoods to shield the Buddha from the rain. Now that's what I call a good friend. A really big, scaly, multi headed friend. Nagas can also be found as the railings leading up temple steps, where they unfurl their giant serpent bodies, their heads at the entrance ready to give you a protective hiss blessing as you ascend. And if Naga doesn't quite do it for you, there's Garuda. This winged figure is the mount of the Hindu god Vishnu, its feathered wings spread out in elaborate designs, showcasing a mythical bird that's a spiritual equivalent of a rock star. Both Naga and Garuda are legends in Hindi and Buddhist iconography, often featured in local folk traditions as well. In some parts of the Himalayas, Nagas aren't just for decorating, they're considered the divine rulers of the land. The finials that stick out from the end corners of the barge boards are called hang hong. And yes, that's their official name, even though that sounds like something you'd order for takeout while wondering if you should use a spoon or chopsticks. You'll usually find Naga's head turned upward and away from the building like it's gazing into the universe. And, if you're lucky, you might encounter a Naga with multiple heads. At Doi Setop in Chiang Mai, each Naga is adorned with nine, yes, nine, heads. That's a lot of FaceTime screen filler, but hey, the more the merrier. Who doesn't need more protection these days? At the central peak of the roof, you'll find the ornament known as a chofa, or sky tassel, which in Thailand often takes the form of Garuda's beak. Think of it as the crowning glory of the temple roof, completing the whole sacred yet stylish vibe. It's as if the roof had a feathered, mythical finishing touch, just to say, this temple isn't just functional, it's also très chic. As one of the most sought after attractions, not just in Thailand, but across much of Asia, Watts hold a magnetic pull for tourists, which, of course, means they also tend to get very crowded. If you want a moment of peace with your spiritual self, or even just a photo without someone grin bombing your frame, you best show up early. Really early. Like, before the tour bus crowds have finished their hotel buffet breakfast early. I always found it a bit jarring to watch those enormous tour buses roll into temple parking lots like clockwork, expelling wide eyed, sun hatted tourists like a spiritual clown car. Most of them shoveled in, clutching iced coffees in one hand and their phones in the other, capturing every gilded inch through their screens. Phones out, faces glazed over, recording everything, experiencing nothing. So much for awareness. In Bangkok, Chiang Mai, and Chiang Rai, there is no shortage of Wat marvels. Bangkok hosts some of the most symbolically important Wats in Southeast Asia, not only for their architecture, but for their enshrined history. These are snippets because many of the Bangkok temples are discussed more in depth later. Bangkok. Wat Phra Keo. Don't even think of littering. Wat Phra Keo, home of the fabled and fabulous Emerald Buddha, is located within the walled compound of the Grand Palace. Officially named Wat Phra Si Ratana Satsadaram, this is no roadside temple or dusty relic. It's the spiritual epicenter of a country that doesn't do anything halfway when it comes to devotion. The temple complex is among the most dazzling in the world, and for Thais, it is the most sacred of grounds. At its heart is the Ubosat, the consecrated ordination hall, constructed to house a statue whose story reads like a Southeast Asian whodunit history mystery. The Emerald Buddha, though technically not emerald, but a deep green jasper, was claimed from Laos by King Rama I in 1779 and relocated from Wat Arun to its current pedestal inside the Grand Palace. The statue had proven too sacred, too politically loaded, too cosmically significant to reside outside the king's watchful eye. Visiting the Grand Palace is an experience that doesn't so much ask for reverence as insist upon it. The grounds are immaculate in that only in royal compounds kind of way. Not a leaf out of place, not a tile out of line. I think weeds know they're not allowed. It's an alchemy of sacred geometry, opulent finishes, and a steady breeze of awe. Stand anywhere, turn slowly, and you'll see a riot of rich colors and dazzling gold. Uncountable spires adorning rooftops and jetties, mosaic tiled walls and halls shimmering everywhere like beetle wings, and statues frozen mid blessing. It's not subtle. The big draw is the Emerald Buddha, which has a fascinating history behind it, full of intrigue, as all good spiritual and historical artifacts should be. From India, where legend says it was carved, to Ceylon, Sri Lanka, to Burma, Myanmar, to the Kingdom of Cambodia, to the Kingdom of Laos, and finally to the Kingdom of Siam. The Emerald Buddha got to go on many adventures. According to myth, the Emerald Buddha was created in 43 BCE by a sage named Nagasena in the city of Pataliputra, India. Nagasena had help from the deities Vishnu and Indra, 500 years after Buddha attained nirvana. Not bad. Having a couple of heavy duty deities to help you with your sacred craft project has got to make the job easier. One account of how the Emerald Buddha, which had been lost to time, was rediscovered, tells the story that the statue wound up in a monastery in the Lan Na kingdom through a succession of conquests, i.e., looting, and then royal lineage marriages as it was passed around Asia. In 1434 AD, as the story goes, a bolt of lightning struck the Chedi at Wat Pa Yia, or Bamboo Forest Monastery in Chiang Rai, revealing a stucco Buddha statue inside. The Buddha was brushed off and placed in the abbot's residence. One day, the abbot noticed a chip of stucco on the nose had flaked off, revealing a green stone underneath. The abbot ordered the stucco removed, and once completed, they saw a small Buddha figure carved from the semi precious green stone, jasper, which is a type of hard jade. After years of bouncing around through conquest and succession, it was brought to Bangkok to the temple of Wat Arun, where he resided until 1785 AD, when he was brought to his current home under great pomp and celebration. Do not expect an imposing towering statue. The Emerald Buddha is a diminutive little fellow, sitting only 26 inches tall by 19 inches wide. However, the Emerald Buddha has a really nice wardrobe that Yves Saint Laurent would be envious of. During the summer season, he wears a stepped pointed crown, a breast pendant, a sash, a necklace, bracelets, all royal attire. The garments and jewelry are made of gold, embedded with precious gems. During the rainy season, he gets a headpiece of gold studded with sapphires and a gold embossed monk's robe draped over his left shoulder. The winter season finds the Emerald Buddha adorned with yet another golden headpiece, studded with diamonds and a jewel fringed gold mesh shawl draped over him. Nice attire, and you get the King of Thailand as your personal valet. It's a good gig being the Emerald Buddha. Wat Arun, the Temple of Dawn. Standing tall and proud on the right bank of the Chao Phraya, the big river that flows through the heat and heart of Bangkok, ancient Wat Arun stands tall against a skyline of modernity. This striking temple, standing proud at 282 feet tall, is a showcase of both architecture and art spanning centuries of political willpower and artistic vision. I first saw Wat Arun from across the Chao Phraya River while I was having dinner with one of my monk brothers who was a Bangkok native. He had promised to take me out when I was back in Bangkok to a restaurant which he said represented the best dining experience in the city featuring classic, though elevated Thai dishes. It was a warm, clear night, and across the river, Wat Arun, located on the opposite bank of the river, was lit up like something out of a fairy tale. Its centerpiece, a Khmer style prang, the tall central tower, glowed against a starry sky, its outer four prangs in perfect symmetry, creating a vista that made my jaw drop with its power and beauty. I knew then that I'd cancel the plans I had made and head there the next day to check it out with my dear friend Chalermwan. Funny that I saw it at night because that the translated name means Temple of Dawn. Gotta love the irony. The main pagoda had undergone many restorations over the centuries as the limestone and ceramic tiles used for construction and adornment are constantly being bombarded with heat, humidity, rain, and more recently, smog, which creates acid rain, which loves to eat away at limestone. The most recent renovation began in 2013 and was completed in 2017. During the magnificent temple grounds, going up the impossibly steep stone steps to the high walkway of the central praying was incredible. You could feel the majestic history of the Wat all around you, permeating you. Something I discovered that is quite unique about Wat Arun is that it was constructed not only with Buddhist principles in mind. The three levels represent primary existence on bottom, the heaven of fulfillment in the middle, and the seven realms of happiness up top. But Hindu and Chinese cosmology and symbology are represented in the motifs throughout the temple complex. The name Arun itself is derived from the Hindu deity Aruna, charioteer of the sun god Surya. This is not unusual in Thailand, where inclusiveness and the respect for other spiritual beliefs and religions are the norm rather than an uncomfortable exception. Wat Pho. No, not the soup. Wat Fraya Chetufon Wimanan Kalaram Ratacha War Mahawihan, or Wat Pho for those of us who simply cannot pronounce the name, is home to one of the world's largest reclining Buddhas. It is one of the oldest and largest Wats in Bangkok, and home to the largest collection of Buddhas, over 1,000 in Thailand. Building the Wat began in 16th century, again by King Rama I. He was a busy guy and wanted a lot of merits, though it was King Rama III who in 1832 AD had the reclining Buddha and temple commissioned and built to further the good works of his grandfather. The image of a reclining Buddha, head resting in hand as he lay dying, yet completely at peace, is a popular motif throughout Southeast Asia. It symbolizes the Buddha entering nirvana, thus ending the cycle of rebirth. The reclining Buddha at Wat Pho is the third largest in Thailand, but the elegance of this statue has made it one of the most popular artistic expressions in the world, and aside from the soles of his feet, is completely layered with gold leaf. Buddha's feet are equally impressive, inlaid with mother of pearl. Each foot displays 108 intricate inlaid dioramas. Flowers, dancers, elephants, tigers, and altar accessories are engraved as a kind of roadmap to discover the next Buddha to appear in this realm of existence. He is quite a sight to behold. He's big. Not just big, he's huge. The reclining Buddha is just shy of 151 feet long and 49 feet tall. Housed in Phra Buddha Sayas Vihara, the hall itself is beautiful, adorned with complex murals on every surface and pillar. The Wat Pha compound contains four great chedi, 91 small chedi, a small central shrine, spacious viharas, and pavilions and a museum. The ceramic tile covered chedis throughout the complex are all different in style and size, each one similar yet unique in its artistic expression. Large stone Chinese statues depicting deities and warriors are found throughout the grounds, guarding the gates along the perimeter as sentinels at the inner gates. But it's not just the gilded, enormous reclining Buddha, incredibly beautiful chedi, and art that surrounds you at every turn that makes Wat Pha special. While the Grand Palace grounds, just down the street, are immaculate, the grounds of Wat Pha are stunningly beautiful, serene, and magical. Each part of the complex has a unique aura to it, from elegant gardens filled with birdsong to potted trees where one can spend time in contemplation. Wat Pha has a serenity and beauty beyond all other Wats I've visited throughout Thailand. Wat Pha is also unique due to its historical foundation as a medical education institution, which to this day is open to the public. It is also the birthplace of traditional Thai massage techniques, and as well as housing a traditional medical science and massage school, it has a sala pavilion where visitors can get a Thai massage from masters of the art for a nominal donation. But my favorite part of my visit were the school kids. Groups of students were wandering around with clipboards in their hands, approaching tourists with a questionnaire. They were adorable. I was approached by a group and enjoyed their questions. Who was I? Where was I from? Was this my first time to Thailand? What was I doing in Thailand? How long would I be there? Where else would I be going? What were my impressions? What do I do for a career? They were adorable and worked their English skills. They would ask me if they were saying something correctly. At the end of questioning from both groups, they asked to take pictures with me. So we hammed it up for selfies, and then came the best part. They handed me small candies, handmade at their schools. Chiang Mai, Wat Phra Tat Doi Sutep. Often referred to simply as Doi Sutep, it is also the name of the mountain atop where it is located. It is perched up high overlooking the city of Chiang Mai and is accessible by foot via a series of trails built throughout the forested mountains, bicycle, quite an uphill climb, scooter, motor car, motorcycles, bus, and the fleet of Songtao. From the temple, the views of downtown Chiang Mai on a cloudless day are incredible. But that mountain isn't just scenic, it's storied. A monk named Sumantera, as legend tells, had a vision. He was instructed to travel to Peng Cha to found a holy relic. He did, and discovered what was said to be a shoulder bone of the Buddha. Mysterious powers surrounded the relic. It glowed, moved on its own, even duplicated itself. But when he brought it to King Dhamaraja of Sukhothai, nothing happened. No miracles, no divine light show. The king, unimpressed, told the monk to keep it. Enter King Nu Neon, CEO of the Lana Kingdom, who heard the tale and saw an opportunity. In 1368, Sumatera traveled north to present the relic. This time, the relic snapped in two. The larger half was tied to the back of a white elephant, because if you're going to let fate decide something, might as well go full folklore, and the elephant was released into the wild. It climbed Doi Sutep, trumpeted 3 times, and then keeled over. Naturally, this was interpreted as a divine sign, and construction of the temple began where the elephant died in 1383 AD. Of course, it could have simply been the elephant dying of a freaking heart attack from climbing the mountain, but we're talking mythology here. The name Wat Phra Tat Doi Sutep is rich in layers. Phra denotes sacredness. That refers to a relic, and Wat is a temple. So, yes, we're talking about a sacred temple built to house a relic of the Buddha himself. Legend holds that it rests in the center of the main chedi, just above the octagonal base and below the lotus bud spire. Whether or not you believe the story, the reverence in the air is real. Due to the Buddha's bone, Doi Sutep is one of the most sacred pilgrimage spots in Thailand and indeed throughout Southeast Asian countries. Chiang Mai, being the historic center of the Lan Na kingdom, going back to the 14th century, makes this beautiful Wat something a little above and beyond your everyday temple. Doi Sutep gets busy, remarkably busy. One day, an Aussie friend texted me at the same time that I was reaching out to her. Both of us asked the other if we wanted to go up the mountain to visit the temple. It was meant to be. So, with an assigned meeting place and time, we hooked up at the base of the mountain to grab a song tao. She was fluent in Thai, which made negotiating the price much easier, as those little red trucks charge much more per person if they are not fully loaded. Up we went, passing numerous bicycle jockeys, power pedaling up the mountain in their peacock colored spandex. Next to the parking area, flowing down the hill like a terraced vertical shopping mall, was a public market. Dozens of small stalls sold food, memorabilia, clothing, and, of course, touristy swag. But it was up the hill that intimidated me. I had seen the pictures, but the long stairs leading to the monastery stretched to the sky, creating its own horizon through the surrounding jungle. 306 steps, flanked by enormous undulating naga serpents in green and gold, wound their way up. Myth turned sculpture. I counted every one. The stairs weren't just a physical climb, they were a rite of passage. By the time we reached the top, our legs trembled under lactic revolt, while our lungs begged for mercy. Our sweat had achieved full woke AF status. We stepped into the inner grounds, and I had to stop for a second. This temple was almost unnervingly symmetrical, like someone had used a divine protractor to lay the place out. It was iPhone tight, all killer, no filler. It was Thailand's Father's Day, the national holiday celebrating the late King Bhumibol Adulaji Brahma IX, and Wat Doi Sutep was decked out for the occasion. Paper lanterns by the hundreds in every color hung from the eaves. 1,000 strands of prayer flags stretched up the central stupa like a maypole. Monks threaded through the crowd, grinning like kids at a carnival. There was reverence, sure, but also joy, noise, and the gentle mayhem of a culture that knows how to throw a party for its king. The layout of the temple is circular, designed for circumambulation. Pilgrims walk clockwise around the golden chedi. Of course, I joined in. Had to, didn't I? We prayed and made offerings. Despite the crush of people, there was a rhythm to it all, like a living mandala. Eventually, though, the crowds wore me down as low hanging clouds blocked the legendary view over the city. We wandered to the open aired cafe perched over a lush ravine. We sipped lattes, watching birds rise and fall on the thermals, as if they too had come for a better perspective. Bronwyn wanted to find brass bells for her house in Hobart, so we descended the Naga staircase, thankfully easier in reverse, though hell on the knees, and wandered into a quieter market tucked off to the right. This was no Rube Tchotchke bazaar. This was a real deal. Antique wood carvings, hand woven textiles, heirloom pottery, and in one glass case, an ancient and incredibly ornate sakyant bamboo tattoo kit nestled in a carved teak box. It was stunning. It made me want to tattoo myself. I still regret not buying it. Bronwyn had made her decision, mixing and matching bells from several different sets to achieve the style she was looking for. Wat Chetty Luang Vihara, a living wreck. Wat Chetty Luang is located in the old town of the new city of Chiang Mai. Once home to the precious Emerald Buddha, construction of the huge stupa was initiated in the mid 1300s. Though not completed until the mid 15th century, it was the largest building in the Lan Na Kingdom, standing at just under 270 feet in the highlands of northern Thailand. It dwarfed all other structures and was visible to the entire region. Sadly, in 1545 AD, an enormous earthquake struck the region, toppling much of the upper temple. While it still looked like a crumbled ruin, the early 1990s saw the Chedi partially restored. Japan and UNESCO provided financing, but the end results have been controversial. Many detractors say the restoration elements were not in the traditional style, losing historical Lana architectural elements. Today, a copy of the Emerald Buddha, marking the 600th anniversary celebration, was installed in the reconstructed eastern niche. Made of black jade, it is worth spending time there to gaze upon. Don't get me wrong, the history and antiquity of the stupa were magnificent, but it somehow felt more like a tourist attraction than a spiritual center. That morning I wandered the temple grounds, circling the ancient stupa beneath a canopy of shade trees. Wide stone benches lined the perimeter, perfect for sitting, squinting, and pretending to be deep in reflection. I gave it a shot. The place felt heavy with history, but oddly fractured. The new temple, all polished and pristine in modern Wat style, looked like it had been airlifted in from a theme park. It sat awkwardly beside the massive, crumbling brick stupa, the true anchor of the place, less a companion than a visual contradiction. Tucked deeper within the grounds lies one of the most curious and frankly unsettling corners of Chiang Mai's spiritual legacy, the city pillar, the Intahakan. Unlike the open grace of most temple spaces, this one hums with something darker, heavier. The pillar is housed in its own shrine, set apart like something not to be revered so much as contained. It's said to protect the city, but not all spirits guard with benevolent hands. Locals offer a quick why as they pass, not in worship, but as a kind of spiritual insurance policy. A subtle practiced gesture that says, I see you, I respect you, now please leave me the hell alone. Back home, founding a city involves paperwork and a board clerk in a fluorescent lit office. Here, it once required blood, bone, and an understanding that some forces don't play nice. Only men are allowed to enter the city pillar shrine, a rule that struck me as both archaic and suspicious. According to legend, these pillars were once consecrated through human sacrifice. Young men, and sometimes pregnant women, the more potent the life taken, the stronger the spirit that would be bound to protect the city. No bones have ever been found, but then again, no one seems eager to dig. Some claim the practice lasted into the mid 19th century. Whether that's folklore designed to thrill or history quietly and uneasily buried, the air around the shrine felt undeniably heavy, thick with old power and secrets best left undisturbed. That women are still barred from entering, even now, only deepens the unease. But it wasn't until I was strolling past at night a few evenings later that the temple truly came alive. The stupa, lit from beneath on all four sides, glowed like a sentinel standing guard over the city, its ancient surface flickering with the ghosts of a million candle-lit prayers. The air was still reverent. Time felt suspended. And then, without warning, the sky dumped a biblical downpour. One moment I was marveling at sacred geometry bathed in golden light. The next I was soaked to the soul, slipping on stone. Nothing snaps you out of spiritual awe quite like wet underwear. Wat Fra Singh Waramana Hawa Wihan. This was the first Wat I spent time at during my travels through Thailand, which I've written about before. For Wat Phra Singh was the site where I witnessed the woman who didn't want to be encumbered by a covering for her shoulders and knees, causing quite a scene. Wat Phra Singh is located in the old city center. The main entrance gate is guarded by Singhs, Chinese lions, which is a unique touch. Wat Phra Singh is located at the end of Ratchademonin Road, which runs east from the temple via the ancient Taipei Gate via direct line to the Ping River. Construction of the temple began in 1345 AD and was originally intended to house the ashes of King Fayu's father. Now that's a loyal and dedicated son. The crown jewel of the Wat Phra Singh complex is Wihan Lai Kam, a striking blend of teak and stucco built in the classic Lana style, ornate, compact, and somehow managing to look both humble and royal at once. Inside sits Phra Buddha Sihing, Thailand's second most revered Buddha image, playing silver medalist to the Emerald Buddha in Bangkok. Though, let's be honest, the Emerald Buddha is roughly the size of a fat house cat and spends most of its time dressed like it's attending a royal garden party. Phra Buddha Sihing's origin is shrouded in a haze of legend and possibly deliberate vagueness. Legend says it was sculpted in the image of Siddhartha Gautama himself, the lion of the Shakya clan, a bold claim that conveniently can't be verified. The original? Long gone. Maybe looted during one of the many sackings of Chiang Mai, maybe relocated during a colonial moment of curiosity. Odds are it's sipping Tuscan light somewhere in the living room of a retired European diplomat, sandwiched between a stolen Khmer bas relief and an infinity pool with excellent feng shui. Historical accounts claim the statue originated at the Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya, India, passed through Sri Lanka, Ceylon, made its way to Nakhon Si Thammarat, Lahore, then to Ayutthaya, and finally arrived in Chiang Mai. That's quite a journey for a single artifact, and a tempting one for sticky fingered pilgrims. Today, there are three contenders for the title of authentic Phra Buddha Sihing: the one in Chiang Mai, another in Wat Phra Mahatat, and the third housed in the Bangkok National Museum. None have been tested or authenticated, and just to keep things spicy, one of the heads mysteriously vanished in 1922, as one does. I returned to Wat Phra Singh for a quieter, more contemplative experience, a monk chat. This daily activity allows visitors to sit with a monk, make a small donation, and discuss life's big questions, or just talk about your dog. The monk listens, offers thoughtful reflections, and concludes the session with a blessing. During the ceremony, he ties a knotted white cord around your wrist, a sai sin, well, chanting a personalized benediction. Tradition holds that you should wear it until it falls off naturally. Mine was tied on October 30th, 2024, at precisely 11:11 a.m. And as I write this on July 22nd, 2025, it's still hanging on. That's either the sign of a truly powerful blessing or incredibly good knotwork. Possibly both. Chiang Rai. Wat Rong Kun. Turn down the lights. The White Temple. Yep, it's white. Gleaming white. Dentists across the globe twist with envy at how white the place is. Its sparkle dances across your retinas due to thousands of small mirror tiles set into every conceivable surface of this visually stunning ode to the Buddha's life journey. It's like someone took a giant scoop of snow, threw in a bunch of crystals, and said, "Let's build a temple." On a bright sunny day, I highly recommend a welder's helmet. It's that white. The juxtaposition between the blazing white structure, symbolizing the Buddha's purity, and the thousands upon thousands of reflective mirror tiles, symbolizing reflection and wisdom, makes a bold statement. The temple itself reflects the idea of reflection. Pretty clever, right? This constant mirroring is an invitation to think about our own inward spiritual journey towards enlightenment, a central theme in the Dhamma. It's all about self examination, shedding desire, and purging the ego so you can see your true nature. A kind of spiritual exfoliation. Located 14 kilometers to the south of Chiang Rai, unless you are in for a long walk, not recommended because its entrance is located off a broad highway. You'll need to hire a ride. But the good news is that every form of transportation in Chiang Rai will get you there. I called a grab cab to head out, figuring I'd find some way to get back to town once there. One of the perks of having an internationally renowned artist at the helm of a project like this, who also has the funds to make it happen, is that the entrance fee is a mere 100 baht, about $3 US. It's a beautiful gesture, showing Chalamachai Kosepat's commitment to making the temple accessible to everyone. Additional donations are welcome, but capped at 10,000 baht, around $300, as he is adamant about not being beholden to any large donors, be they corporate or private. This is a rare move in the world of big ticket cultural projects, where money often talks louder than the artist's vision. Kosite Pepat wants the temple to remain a personal creation, free from the strings of corporate or private interests. Level up, Chalamachar Chai. By the end of the 19th century, the original temple on this site had crumbled into near oblivion. Chiang Rai, smaller and scrappier than its cousin Chiang Mai, didn't have the resources, or maybe just didn't have the interest, to save it. The Sangha aged, passed on, and the temple quietly collapsed into ruin. Fast forward to 1997. Enter Chalermanchai Kosepipat, a Chiang Rai native with international acclaim, a taste for the surreal, and, crucially, a very healthy bank account. He didn't restore the temple, he raised it, and from the rubble conjured something wildly new, a gleaming otherworldly monument to Buddhism, Thai identity, and unfiltered artistic vision. And it worked. Today, Wat Rong Kun, the White Temple, pulls in tourists like moths to a mirrored lotus, easily the most visited site in the city. The moment you step through the gates and onto the path toward the bridge, it hits you. This isn't just a temple, it's an art installation, a dark dreamscape, a warning. Cholerm Chai doesn't traffic in subtlety. His symbolism is bold, unflinching, and at times unsettling in exactly the way he intends. The cycle of rebirth installation, which you cross en route to the main hall, doesn't ease you in, it grabs you. Hundreds of hands and anguished faces stretch upward on both sides of the bridge from a pit, clawing for something: desire, escape, relief from suffering. Their neediness is palpable. The sheer volume of it makes the desperation almost unbearable. It's a stunning reversal, suffering rendered in purity. A reminder that unrestrained desire is the real hell, and that salvation isn't found in reaching for more, but in learning to let go. Heavy stuff. At the foot of the bridge stands two kinari, mythical beings from Buddhist lore with the upper body of a woman and the lower half of a giant bird. They're symbols of grace and beauty, but here they are more than decorative. They serve as gatekeepers, guiding visitors past the worst of human impulses: temptation, greed, desire. Their presence is serene but unblinking, like they've seen it all before and know most of us are still going to screw it up. They remind me of Rodin's Gates of Hell, not just in form but in function. This is suffering and longing sculpted into stillness. It's not subtle, and it's not supposed to be. You don't walk away thinking about tourist trinkets. You walk away thinking about merit, rebirth, and the uneasy truth that most of our problems start with wanting too much. One of the interesting things about the entire temple design is its allegorical story telling of the Buddhist path towards enlightenment. Each building, as you cycle through the well thought out storyline, takes you along the journey from rebirth to nibbana, something unique from any other Wat I'd visited. A Wat as a storytelling vehicle. Wat Rong Suea Ten, because who doesn't need a blue temple? In Chiang Rai, having two iconic bold Wats was not enough. Now that they had the White Temple, in stark contrast to the Black House, Ban Dam, a private art museum and temple, they needed another equally impressive temple in a new color as well. And they got one in the form of Wat Song Suea Ten, or Temple of the Dancing Tiger, in the Rim Kok neighborhood. Sporting a modern design and painted a bold, striking cerulean blue, with a lot of gold to boot. Wat Rong Sue Ten is another very unique temple. Those crazy Chiang Rai kids. Legend, okay, maybe not legend, but let's pretend, has it that one boozy karaoke night, the Chiang Rai community decided they needed another crown jewel temple, something that would dazzle, disturb, and make Grandma gasp. The call went out for designs that screamed shock and awe. Enter Futa Kabakau, aka Sulanak, a protege and contemporary of Chalerm Chai Kosipetpat, the mastermind behind the White Temple. With white and black temples already taken, Sulanak went bold. Deep, electric sapphire blue, trimmed with gold so sharp it practically winks with attitude. Completed in 2016, Wat Rong Suea Ten's central building is a showstopper, not just for its vivid colors, but for the intricate, almost hypnotic detail covering every surface. And guarding the staircase? Two of the largest, most vivid multi headed Naga guardians I've ever seen, snarling like they mean business. Wat Song Suea Ten is designed in the dramatic neo traditional, read wild and wacky, style of Buddhist artistic expression, pioneered by Chalerm Chai, creating outrageous sculptures with bold psychedelic flourishes. It was an early morning so pristine it practically begged for a heroic stroll. I slipped on my leather flip flops, the ones that apparently qualify me as a local legend. No, really. Over a latte in Chiang Mai, a woman had paused mid sip just to declare, "You're the American who walks everywhere in leather sandals." That's right, folks. I've earned my street cred one step at a time in Olukais. I set out to conquer the 6 kilometers from Gita's guest house to the Blue Temple with zero planning finesse. My route hugged a busy highway for most of the way, because why take the scenic route when you can smell exhaust and dodge speeding trucks? Still, the morning was cool, traffic sparse, and the sky that kind of blue that fools you into thinking, this won't suck. I came to the bridge spanning the Cock River. Yes, the one begging for a bad joke. As I crossed, I was hit by a pastoral scene so perfectly Southeast Asian, it could have been plucked from a postcard or a daydream. The river stretched broad and calm, its banks punctuated by primitive wooden houses on stilts, weathered but sturdy, like old sailors standing watch. Small rice paddies patched the landscape, their neon green shoots glowing in the morning light. White egrets stalked the shallows with dignity, while smaller birds darted and sang high in the trees. A grassy spit jutted into the water, a perfect natural stage where half a dozen water buffalo grazed the tall grass, their slick black hides gleaming under the sun like lacquered sculptures. Flat bottomed boats drifted lazily nearby, fishermen poling quietly, tossing fine seine nets in wide, lazy arcs that rippled the mirror smooth surface. The whole scene was so vividly alive it made me pause, blink twice, and remember why the hell I love this place. Walking further, I found the small side street leading me within a few hundred feet to a driveway into the parking lot of the Blue Temple. I was expecting something more akin to the White Temple, with its broad, divided, and landscaped driveway, tour buses, shops, and glittering signs pointing everywhere. This was much more to my liking. The Blue Temple was tucked away in a local neighborhood, and if you didn't know it was there or were not paying attention, it would be easy to pass by. As I neared the parking area, I spotted Pascal perched on a bench, the Swiss bike tourer with just enough madness to make you respect him. We had met the night before at the reggae bar in downtown Chiang Rai, where his stories of pedaling across Asia sounded like equal parts adventure and mild insanity. He was taking a breather for a few days, waiting on a friend to join him for the Thai leg of his journey. Buried in his phone, he didn't notice me slide onto the bench beside him. When he finally looked up, he did the classic double take, like I'd suddenly materialized out of thin air. Then that broad grin spread across his face, lighting up with the unmistakable spark of recognition. Good morning. This is a surprise. How are you? How's your head from last night? We may have had more than a few beers and shots. I'm good. Took a nice long walk to get the body working and sweat the drinks out. I thought I'd come up here and check out Song Sui 10 at all this blue, I said as I waved across the parking lot at the temple compound where the deep sapphire theme was in full force. I looked over at his bike, shocked that it looked like something you'd see in a postcard from some nondescript village in the Vietnam Highlands, dating back a century. You rode that across the continent? Pascal laughed hard. Hell no! My touring bike is getting worked on. I rented that from a hostel to get around for a few days. I was going to say, you're even tougher than you look, riding that thing around the world. Pascal laughed. It's awful, but I must keep pedaling for muscle memory. The seat is torture. We chatted a little more, then said, "See you at the bar tonight," as I rose and headed to the entrance of the Wats to check it out. Australian, German, Spanish, French, Eastern European, Russian, and a couple from Iceland, the early birds quietly marveling at the temple's unapologetic blaze of blue in the early morning sun. Inside, the murals were pure visual jazz. Against the deep cerulean walls, white and gold mythological scenes leaped forward like three-dimensional visions. It was historical Buddhist storytelling on acid, and it worked. If blue is your favorite color, then Wat Song Sue 10 is for you. Not only are the existing temple structures a deep, rich cerulean hue, but the inside murals use the same colors, making the depictions of elements of Buddhist myths and legends really pop. The method of using a dark background to make the lighter colors and whites pop out of a painting is not new. It's one of the oldest tricks of the trade. At Watts Song Sueya 10, it is used to incredible effect, making all the elements portraying the stories come to life vividly. After wandering the temple grounds, taking it all in, I sat down with a cappuccino and realized I didn't need to retrace my highway death march. A longer, quieter path back to Gita's appeared on my GPS. Glorious. I was just about to start off when a red haired woman, about my age, bounced over with a sunny grin and a familiar accent. Where you from, mate? Washington State. You? I replied. Ireland. Country Cork. City proper. Oh, do you know the McCleary family? I asked. She shrieked, They're my cousins. Turned out, Suanen was going to walk back to town as her tuk-tuk driver had tried to swindle her, and being Irish, she let him know that was a very bad idea. Never, ever mess with an Irish lass. I liked her immediately. And just like that, Swanen and I were off, two strangers ambling through the quiet residential streets of Chiang Rai. The walk back was much better. We shared a fluffy croissant sandwich and some fried chicken, picked out some road beers at 7-Eleven, as one does when hanging out with an Irish lass, and wound our way back toward town, trading travel tales, laughing, and comparing absurd hotel and restaurant reviews. When we reached the bridge over the Calk River, instead of heading up the stairs and onward, she tugged my hand and veered toward the riverbank. Let's stop for a while, she said. We cracked open our beers and sat in the grass, watching the egrets stalk the shadows as fish of an unknown type jumped at a hatch. Trading stories of heartbreaks, breakthroughs, and everything in between, we both felt the traveler's connection. When I pointed out that her name, Swanen, means wise river, she looked at me in surprise. How did you know that? Hey, just because I'm an American doesn't mean I don't know stuff. She laughed, her red hair catching the midday sun like a halo as she leaned down to me. Time stopped. Sometimes a temple visit changes your spiritual trajectory. Sometimes it just changes your afternoon. An hour disappeared, and with plans to meet up at the reggae bar that evening, Swanen and I parted ways. Sometimes heading out early in the morning has unintended consequences, and though Swanen never came to the bar, I'll always remember that wonderful moment on the bank of the Cock River. Wat Hui Pla Keng, a giant Buddha goddess? Wat Hui Pla Keng can be seen for miles across Chiang Rai's province, its luminous figure rising above the rolling countryside like a celestial lighthouse. Locals and tourists alike call it the Big Buddha, but that nickname's a bit off the mark. It isn't Buddha at all. She is Guan Yin, the Buddhist goddess of mercy, gazing out over a vast pastoral fields and gently rolling hills with a calm that feels personal, no matter where you stand. The staff at Gita's guest house arranged, per my request, a driver to take me out to Hua Pla Keng early in the morning. I wanted to catch the temple in that soft golden light around 7 a.m. My ride showed up, and wouldn't you know it, it was Nam, my tuk tuk friend, the same cheerful soul I'd met on arrival, the one I'd shared beers and laughs with on the curb at the 7-Eleven and later at the reggae bar. We locked eyes, grinned, and shook hands like old friends reuniting after a war, or at least a few paragraphs. Then we were off on the 30-minute, 14-kilometer ride through Chiang Rai's lush rural countryside. On the way, Nam told me about growing up in Chiang Mai, how he and his buddies learned English from Hollywood movies and recorded late night TV episodes. We pulled over for coffee and set the tone for what would be a damn fine morning. Wat Huea Pla King is the realized vision of a single monk, Thop Chok Tisawaso, who took what was once an ancient, very modest backwoods temple and transformed it into something extraordinary. It took him just 4 years. The man was clearly a force of nature. Because it sits outside the city core, Wei Pla Keng is quieter than other Chiang Rai temples, though its popularity is growing fast. That morning, I had it almost entirely to myself. The silence was luxurious, except for the birds. They were exulting in the new dawn, loudly. Guan Yin herself sits perched on a high hill, then rises 259 feet tall above the hill crest. She's about the height of a 25-story building, radiating a peaceful power that stops you in your tracks. Her gleaming white surface catches the light in a way that makes her seem both solid and otherworldly. 114 grand stone steps led to a massive, broad white stone foundation. Once at the top of the steps for 40 baht, roughly $1, ride the elevator up through the interior to a viewing platform nestled behind her third eye. From there, the countryside spreads out like a painting, verdant, misty, eternal, and very, very green. Inside, everything is white, and I mean everything. Ornate dragons, delicate trees, deities of all sizes and shapes, each sculpted in stunning three-dimensional detail like the inside of a dream carved from alabaster. The atmosphere is so hushed and clean it feels like walking inside a snowflake. Next to Guan Yin sits the temple's second marvel, a 9-story pagoda that blends Chinese and Lana Thai styles in a way that shouldn't work, but somehow does. It's pyramid shaped, less traditional than the rounded or squared silhouettes you usually see, and instead of nagas flanking the staircase, there are two brilliantly coiled, elaborate Chinese dragons. The whole structure is painted in firecracker red, imperial gold, jade green, and bright yellow, standing in dramatic contrast to the all white serenity of Guan Yin next door. The effect is stunning. The place shouldn't be peaceful. The bright and busy facade of the pagoda adds an energy in concert to the serenity of Guan Yin. Maybe because it was early, or maybe because I was there with an open heart and a good cup of coffee in me. Maybe it was just Buddha magic. The effect is unexpectedly stunning. By all rights, it should be a visual nightmare. That riot of color and detail stacked next to Guan Yin's calm, minimalist grandeur? It ought to clash. But instead, the two play off each other like yin and yang. The pagoda doesn't disrupt the peace, it energizes it. Maybe it was the early hour. Maybe it was a rare alignment of caffeine, clear skies, and spiritual openness. Or maybe it was just good old fashioned Buddha vibe, the kind that doesn't need to explain itself to tourists with opinions. On the way back to town, I turned to Nam. You busy after this? Or hungry? Nam laughed. I'm Thai. I'm always hungry. I told him lunch was on me, but he started to politely refuse until I reminded him that his hire time wasn't over yet, and that I had no interest in seeing another temple or waterfall or tea plantation. I wanted food and conversation. He relented, smirking. McDonald's, he deadpanned. I shot him a look. Try again. Nom. I was kidding. I don't like McDonald's. I liked Nom more every time we met.